I want to bring in the chief U.S. political correspondent for the Daily Mail, Rob Crilly. Rob, good to see you. Tell me what it was. I mean, I kept reading. I get the pool reports, right? Which just describe what that is.
So the president has a small pool of reporters traveling with him. Obviously, the whole White House press corps can't get into all of his events. So he has a handful with him. And it was my job as the print pooler to write up every interaction, every movement, and send my reports out to thousands of journalists waiting to hear what he was up to.
So you write this report and say, what do you put in those reports? And then who do you send it to and where does it go?
So some of them are quite dull. The motorcade departed the airport at 11:02. We arrived at the venue for the speech at 11:05, things like that. And then I write up an email. I send it into the White House Correspondents Association. They have a mailing list of all their members. So it goes out to thousands of people, obviously a large contingent in Washington, but it can go all around the world. I have Indian journalists sometimes emailing me saying what was going on, what did he say about Prime Minister Modi. So some of the pool reports are a bit dull. With this president, of course, there's always something interesting going on. So take Friday, for example. My first day traveling with him, it was his first domestic trip. We turn up at Joint Base Andrews. We get on the plane with him.
What time is that? What time did you arrive?
So our call time, I think, was about 8:30. And our departure was at around about 10 o'clock. So he comes out of the White House. He stands on the South Lawn. He talks to the in-town journalists, the in-town pool, and all the reporters gathered there with Marine One. You remember Chopper Talk from first time around? He talks to the reporters there, answers a few questions, gets into Marine One, flies to Joint Base Andrews. He gets out of the helicopter, walks across the tarmac. We're waiting under the wing to see what he's going to do, if he's going to come over and talk to us. He didn't on this occasion. He was straight up the steps, the big steps. Remember how President Biden used the small steps into the belly of the plane? That was quite a clear message. Big steps are back, baby. The big steps are back. So he walks up the plane. We then have to hustle up the steps at the back of the plane into the press cabin at the back of the plane, and then we take off. And
how many people are in that? How many people are in that press cabin with you?
So I think it's 13 journalists plus one press assistant from the White House, a wrangler, as they're known. And it was her job, Olivia. It was her first trip as well. New crew at the White House. It's her job to keep us on time, in the right place, make sure we don't get into trouble. So we took off. It was a short hop, maybe an hour and a half, just about enough time for breakfast. And then we landed in Asheville.
So there's a food service, by the way.
There is a food service, and I can tell you about the wine service if we get all the way through to dinner. But that's later in the trip. And we landed in Asheville, North Carolina, as you remember, badly hit by Hurricane Helene. And one of the signs that this is a different administration is we've landed. Air Force One has come to a halt. The reporters, we scurry out the back. We stand under the wing again, waiting for POTUS, President of the United States, to come down the steps. And he comes down, and I'm ready to send my pool report saying, POTUS came down the steps, got into the motorcade. But then, of course, he turns and he walks straight for the press pool, and he comes over and talks to us and starts answering our questions. And at that point, he's there to talk about the disaster recovery in North Carolina. And then we're on to California for the wildfires. But at this point, you can throw anything at him. So I shouted a question about the deportation flights. We'd just seen the photographs of military planes being filled up with illegal immigrants being sent home. There was a question lobbed about TikTok, and he maybe chatted to us 3, 4, 5 minutes, answering a bunch of questions before he then goes back to the motorcade, and he's driven, funnily enough, it's only about 100 yards across the apron there. Well, we journalists have to run. We have a wrangler shouting at us, "Get in position, go, go, go." And Trump drives over, gets out of the car, and he greets 100 or so supporters who'd come out to see him. So again, my job is to say, to write to quickly, and I'm an older guy, I'm Gen X, I'm not great on the phone. but you're desperately trying to write this email as quickly as you can about what President Trump said to his fans, what they shouted. Melania, of course, was there as well. And someone shouted, Melania, you're beautiful. And you're writing all of this down about their interaction. So that's only the first couple of hours of the trip. This was a 4-day trip. So we were sort of, we were flat out from start to finish.
So when you get to California, to fast forward for a second,
Yeah.
You land. Were you guys shocked that Gavin Newsom was there?
Well, he had posted, I think, on social media that this was his plan. It had been reported he was planning to do it. And actually, before we landed, your successor, the new press secretary, Caroline Levitt, had come back to talk to us. And I had asked her, how is this going to go if Gavin Newsom is on the timer? Now, she said they weren't aware he was going to be there. So when we got off the plane and saw him standing there, kicking his heels, waiting for Trump to emerge, we licked our lips. This was going to be quite the confrontation. It was only a couple of weeks ago, Trump had called for his resignation. But there was a super interesting power play then unfolded. We're standing there. There's no sign of Trump. He left Gavin Newsom waiting on the tarmac. But I don't know what it was. I didn't have a watch on it, but 7 or 8 minutes. So Gavin Newsom is rocking back and forth on his heels. Then Trump does come down, and the greeting was reasonably warm. There was a shake of the hands, a smile. Trump leaned in and sort of put his hand on his back, clapped him. But you know what? That interaction just lasted a little bit too long to be natural and genuine. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
So that was a super interesting moment on the trip.
Okay, so what I thought was interesting is it's Friday night, and I'm reading the pool reports, and I get one, and you'll know, I apologize because I don't have it in front of me, but it was like, you're on the West Coast in LA, but 3 hours earlier on the East Coast, I'm doing the math, and it was like, they called a lid. So explain what that is, but it was like the equivalent of 11:30 at night on a Friday night.
Yeah. So our job is to cover all of President Trump's appearances. And at a certain point in the day, the White House press office will tell you, that's it, he's finished. Whether he's just kind of settling in for private meetings, or if he's traveling, he's at his hotel, he's at his residence, he's going to bed. And they call it, the announcement is, we're calling a travel photo lid. So at that point, there'll be no more travel, no more photo opportunities, no more sight of him. So that was, we'd gone actually from California. We'd actually flown to Las Vegas, Nevada by this point.
Is that when the dinner service was?
That's when the dinner service was. And you will, you will know this. The president is a creature of habit, and he doesn't like to be away from home. So the reason we'd made the hop was so that he could stay in the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, where of course he feels more comfortable. And we had an event there the next day, but it wasn't until lunchtime. It could easily have been scheduled so that he didn't have to do much. So anyway, so we had started off at 9 in the morning or something. We flew to North Carolina, then to California, then to Nevada. And by the time we were finished, I forget the time. It was maybe, it was certainly past midnight Eastern time. And that had been a long, long day with a lot of interactions with the president.
So how different is this from Biden, say? I mean, just in terms of the accessibility, the timing, like I can't recall the last time President Biden did anything past, 6 o'clock.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm going to be a non-partisan observer, which is the way that I think journalists like me should be. And I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way. But what I want to say is, as a journalist, what I want is access and stories. And the difference now is really night and day. I traveled a lot with Biden, and he never once, for example, came back to the press cabin to speak. I think he did it on 2 occasions, maybe once coming back from Tel Aviv, you remember that trip? And I think maybe there was another one. Trump, with us in his first trip, 4 days, he did it twice. He did it on Saturday afternoon, and he did it again last night. And last night was a nightmare because we were on our approach to Joint Base Andrews, And he came back and answered a bunch of questions for about 8 minutes. And my job as the print pooler, we have no Wi-Fi or anything, is to get my tape recorder and transcribe it as fast as I can. Now that's fine if you've got an hour and a half left in the flight. I had about 5 minutes. So I mean, I'm making it sound like a problem. It's not. So the accessibility is completely different. We
Can I
may
ask
not
just a tie, like, and I mean this in all seriousness, like when I was reading your pool reports from the weekend, I was tired reading them. I was like, are you guys exhausted with the back and forth comparatively? I mean, because that's a lot of up and down stairs running around. Like, do your colleagues go, I don't know how we're going to do this, Rob?
Yes. In a word, yes. I mean, let's be honest, I'm on the older side of the people who pool. And there's been a big switch over in personnel. And I've noticed there's a new younger crew. But I think all of us, by the end of 4 days, were absolutely exhausted. There's running up and down escalators. There's running up and down stairs. You can't keep the president waiting. So you have to be there first. You have to get to the plane while he's getting out of the motorcade. There's a lot of running around, but it's the mental side of things. It's like he will come back and speak to you for 5 minutes and then say, right, any questions? And I could see an awkward moment at the start of one of our interactions where he's being asked about what's it like being back on the plane? How is it being? And he would look around as if to say, what the hell? I'm the commander in chief. Let's get real with these questions. So you've got to be on it. You've got to be ready to ask about the latest tensions with North Korea. You've got to be up to speed with who's in negotiations with TikTok. You've got to be knowing what his plans are on tariffs. Because, I remember a couple of years ago, him embarrassing a Bloomberg journalist. Bloomberg is all about business. And he was asked a question about oil prices. And Trump shot back, well, do you know what the price of a barrel of Brent crude is? And the journalist didn't. So it's not just the physical side of things. You've got to have it up here as well.
Yeah. Well, I said this after the election. Buckle up, baby, because I think this is going to be a heck of a 4 years. But I appreciate the fact that he's brought transparency and access back. Rob Crilly, thank you for everything you're doing to keep us informed as to what's happening. I appreciate you sharing that with us and breaking it all down. Hopefully you'll come back soon.
Love to. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you. All right, guys, listen, we have another great show lined up tomorrow and the rest of the week, breaking down these first few days of the Trump administration. Tomorrow, by the way, January 6th defendant Enrique Tarrio. You might remember him. He got a pardon from Trump. He's going to explain to us his role on January 6th, what he thinks about the pardon. And we've got a great conversation about DEI on Friday coming up. The panel always on Thursday. Remember, my content on my newsletter drops today, SeanSpicer.com. A lot of behind the scenes stuff that is coming out right now, an analysis of the first thing. So always subscribe to that. SeanSpicer.com. VIP memberships are always welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.